This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Oh, hello.
Well, let's get back to it.
I love a news bulletin with the word codswallop in it. You know you're in a good day when the word codswallop appears in the news bulletin. I'll wipe up some texts and emails from yesterday's show. Stephen says, very impressed with your 11 shows in a row. That was over the Christmas period when I was doing the A to Z. 11 shows in a row, he says, but did you get them in the right order? Well, it's very important to get them in the right order, as a get them in the right order expert will tell you.
If you get it in order, you get extra points.
Extra points for getting it in order. Murray emails, Scotland prescriptions are included with life. What does that mean? Scotland prescriptions are included with life. What does that mean? NR tweets, knocking a statue down is not rewriting history, it's erasing history. No, it's not. It's not erasing history. We still know about him, you idiot. And when I say idiot, I mean that in the nicest, most positive way possible. He says that guy on the plinth did some good deeds too. He didn't do anything wrong knowingly at the time. Yeah, that's right. Jan says, do you remember when the horizontal hold used to slip on old TVs and you had to fiddle about with the knob at the back to make the picture stop spinning around? Oh, the good old days, says Jan. No, those days were rubbish. Paul says, they could bring back the little girl and the balloon clown on BBC Two. Yeah, maybe they'd like to run the country. Richard says, if you took away people aged 60 to 90, this is the statistic that I mention every now and again, that if you took away the old age vote, then this country would not have left the European Union and Jeremy Corbyn would be our Prime Minister. And Richard, a wag, texted, if you took away people aged 60 to 90, Jeremy Corbyn could not be the Prime Minister because you've taken him away. Well, that's just factually accurate. Helen says, have you noticed that Bojo doesn't have a sign interpreter behind him when he does his press conferences? All the other countries do have one. Is it because of all the rubbish things he says that they wouldn't be able to do signs for? Well, I've got a sign for him. There you go. That sign. There's a sign for you, Bodge. There's another one. Paul tweets, I'm not meaning to be controversial. I'm not meaning to be controversial, but not everything to do with history is opinion. There are many associated facts that aren't opinion. Well, yeah, birth dates, death dates, names. Other than that, it's all opinion. Which is my opinion. Lee tweets, sick note, Starmer has been isolating 6 times. Personally, I thought he'd been isolating since since being Labour leader. Yeah, I'll talk about that. Just a couple more. Couple of 3 more. Zara emails, if your A to Z was only 77p cheaper, Sparkles, out of Hazard and Sparkles, could have bought it with a £1 from the Daily Fail. Oh, it's going to cost him a lot more than that. That's just the headline figure. A lot more than that. She's talking about the book that I did of the A to Z, which we compiled over Christmas. It was the biggest response I've ever had to the A to Z. I've been doing it many, many years now, and it was just absolutely overwhelming. You people were thrilled to participate. And the full list and my month-by-month sort of play-by-play account of last year is available for £1.72 as an ebook on Amazon. Patrick says, don't be too surprised anytime soon to find Boris with a microphone in his hand on the doorstep of number 10 doing a cover of Cliff Richard's Carrie Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Are you expecting that anytime, Bodge? Yes. I'm looking forward to when he goes back home and she's throwing all of his clothes out the window. Of course, he could they'd sit in the street overnight, he'd come outside, put them on, and nobody would notice the difference. Paul says Keir Starmer needs to be more like Angela Rayner and less like Keir Starmer. The reason Starmer is down is because of that launch that was so terrible he needed a sick note from his mummy and begged Angela Rayner to face the world. Yeah, I'm still a bit queasy after that Prime Minister's questions, and Angela Rayner and Boris Johnson were, blimey, you two, get a room. That was embarrassing. I mean, practically canoodling they were.
Disgusting.
I mean, really. There are people present. And kind of disappointing, really, that they were enjoying each other's company so much. It is a game. It just really rammed it home to me that it's just all a game. Even to, the good ones that you sort of rely on to tell the truth and, and act in our best interests. Even for them, it's just a game. It's because it's all sort of dress-up, party, parlour game nonsense, where they sitting opposite each other. There's practically no other parliament in the world that organises itself like that. Most of the rest of them sort of fan out when they face the front. They're not all going, all that nonsense that we, like pantomime rubbish that we engage in here. They like it so much. That's why they're insisting on doing it. They love it. It's their little pre-prandial. They all go and, show up for the camera. I'm here. And then they swan off for lunch, which is probably swan. John emails, he's only broken a mini stereo code. It's not like it was a really big stereo code or anything. Oh, he's doing his best. Right, so that's wiping up last night's. Thanks, people. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Got a lot of very, very important issues I want to discuss with you this evening. But first, here's a call in Hull. Hello, Charles.
Hi, Nick. It's actually about the great leader's vehicle skills.
His vehicle skills?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Actually, I was in London in 1998.
When was that?
Walking down the back streets of South King's Cross, Gray's Inn roadway, round the back.
Oh,
streets
right.
there.
Well, I remember what that was like then. Dreadful.
I know. Well, anyway,
what were you doing? What were you doing there? What were you doing there? Waiting for your man?
Well, no.
Get Velvet Underground on the phone. They'll explain.
Coming up any minute, actually. But it was his Sunday morning, 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was a bit sort of drowsy, walking along.
Drowsy.
And there was this guy sitting on top of a Jaguar car.
Right.
And there was a photographer in front of the car.
Well, he was lounging,
taking
was he?
snaps. And I'm walking by, and this guy, he's suddenly, his legs go out akimbo, just like his arms. And I thought, who is that blonde-haired idiot? What a buffoon on top of a Jaguar.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Charles, we've run out of time. We'll never know who that was. Isn't that disappointing? Sometimes life just deals you little disappointments. You just have to live with them, that's all. Just have to learn to deal with them. Shame, really. 0345 6060 973. I don't know, it's just going on a while, wouldn't it? But thanks, Charles. Appreciate it. Rose texts, "Hi Nick, about your bird." Oh God, not this again. See, a while ago I saw a bird on a pavement. Two pavements about 100 miles from each other, same bird. Not necessarily the actual same individual, but, same type. You understood that, right? "Hi Nick, about your bird. In my RSPB handbook, I found two who could be it. One is the little stint, described as a tiny wader. It's robin-sized or smaller, mottled, and but alas, its legs are not very long. Ah, well, see, that rules that one out. And two is a Kentish plover. It has the legs, is only a bit bigger than a robin, and is more dramatically coloured than you describe. However, your one could be a juvenile Kentish plover. It's maybe lost its way. Stupid bird." Both species are migrants, she said. Migrants? No! Get Priti Patel round here immediately. She'll be able to push them back out to sea. Because they're coming over here. And there's a picture of one of them. Yeah, sort of, a bit like that, but a bit too brown. I don't like brown. It's a bit too brown, that one. Bring me one that's a bit greyer and its legs are longer. Other than that, I don't really wish to discuss it anymore. Seems like last year we talked about it for about the entire year. on and on and on we went. People were obsessing. Leon texts, on Colston, these are all exactly the same people who are cheering on and supporting mob rule when it came to dragging humans out of the roads and encouraging drivers to run them over for protesting against the climate crisis. Well, as I was saying yesterday, it doesn't really matter what the issue is. It's all culture war stuff. If the other side says yes, then your side says no. And any win, even if it is a positive win for you personally, you will decry and fulminate against if it is a win for the other side. If they lose, even if it means you lose too, then you cheer. That is the stupid position that we have found ourselves in. And it's all thanks to Boris Johnson.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
In 2 short years, he's turned this country into what looks like the inside of his car. And there's no way that if it was in fact Bodge that chap was describing, that he didn't leave a massive dent on the bonnet of that Jaguar. 0345 6060 973, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
This is absolute tosh.
Thanks, Nige, you're the best. RJ texts, I just bought your A to Z book, the old-fashioned paperback version. Paperback? Huh. Apparently it's arriving tomorrow. Wow. That's amazing because they have to print it. I mean, they don't have a stack of them. They print them to order, I imagine. God bless Mr. Bezos, says RJ. I think God has actually blessed Mr. Bezos over and over again. Don't you worry about him. He's inserted himself into what looks like a giant sex toy and blasted himself off into space to thank God personally. Adrian emails, I wonder if the designer of that rocket was having a laugh, by the way, or and they took it to him and said, no, that's the only way, the only ergonomic way in which this rocket can be designed. Your Imperial Bezosness. There's absolutely nothing we can do. It must look like this. Now, climb aboard. Adrian emails, Carol keeps saying on your What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol podcast that she is doing some work, but she can't talk about it. I think she's Mushroom on The Masked Singer. Well, I've got absolutely no idea what that means. I'd have to be on mushrooms to watch that programme. Stop wasting your life watching that rubbish. I promise that this is true. If you stop watching it, they'll stop making it. That's a fact. 0345. What's that?
Mushroom.
That's a mushroom. That's not like any kind of mushroom I've ever eaten.
That's Carol.
Oh, that's it. Right. Oh, that's that on that TV show?
Yeah.
Blimey, that's a bit extravagant, isn't it?
Good, isn't it?
Well, all right. I take that back. I'm definitely watching that show. Tavistock. Hello, Rose.
Oh, hello.
Rose.
I just wanted to say about the electricity and things, the energy rises,
Yes.
because you were going to mention that. Well, I was thinking about it earlier today. And, I mean, in a civilised nation, when this came up, the immediate reaction surely should be from government, right, what do we do about this? We've got masses of poor people. I mean, leave aside for a moment the fact that they've created all that poverty over the last 11 years,
Yes.
or most of it.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do about it? We cannot have people who can't heat their homes and they can't eat.
Yeah.
You know, it's a rich country.
Right, or we can't have a lot of people clogging up the streets complaining about it, so Priti Patel's going to ban protesting. Problem solved.
Yes, that's the way they solved it. Yes, exactly. And I mean, the other night you had, I think it was last night, this rubbish in the Daily Mail. We're supposed to admire Rishi Sunak, have him vote him in as Prime Minister because he's disgustingly wealthy and is spending £800 on a jacket. This is supposed to be a good thing in a country where millions of people haven't got enough to eat.
I bet that £800 jacket is the cheapest jacket he's ever owned.
Yes, probably. Yes.
He was slumming it in that jacket.
Oh dear, honestly, Nick.
I know the stuff you see, eh?
Yes. Well, yes, I'm fortunate enough not to have to look at the Daily Mail.
I mean,
but I can't afford it. I can't buy a paper.
I'm actually thinking of going to the foot of our stairs. What do you think of that?
Oh, wonderful. I didn't, because you're a Londoner, aren't you? But my northern relatives used to say, well, I'll go to the foot of our stairs.
But what does that mean? Why would they say that?
I don't know. Mother never knew. We had a real laugh about it.
I mean, it's one of my favourite phrases, and you can't wheel it out too often because, it's best not repeated too frequently. But what a great phrase. But I have absolutely no idea of its derivation.
No, I mean, because you were so astonished you went to the foot of our stairs.
Like, what's at the foot of your stairs? Because at the foot of the stairs, you're looking up the stairs, but why would you do that? I don't understand. Why does that indicate your astonishment?
Oh, I wish Mum was alive. I could have asked. She might just have some idea. Maybe my cousin has.
Yeah, okay.
Also, they say it in Cumbria, because a friend of mine said, oh, yes, we've always said that.
Right.
She didn't know what it meant.
I bet the internet knows. I'm going to ask the internet. How does that sound?
Oh, sod the internet.
Yeah, I know. Have you seen the internet, Rose? There's nothing on it, believe me.
I haven't got it, because if I had it, I wouldn't be able to leave it alone. I'm an addict. I've got rid of the television because I sat watching the bloody thing.
Right, well then you're better off...
I certainly don't want the internet.
No, you're better off out of it. All right.
Much better.
Thanks a lot, Rose. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. Do you want to talk about money? Oh, all right then. The bosses of Britain's biggest... This is a prelude to... this is an amuse-bouche. The bosses of Britain's biggest companies will have made more money this year by breakfast time yesterday than the average UK worker will earn in the entire year. What? In the entire year. The High Pay Centre, a think tank that campaigns for fairer pay for workers, said that by 9 a.m. on the 7th of January, the fourth working day of the year, a FTSE 100 chief executive will have been paid more on an hourly basis than the UK worker's annual salary. Wow. Well, I'll go to the foot of our stairs. The country's biggest union said it was disgraceful that greedy executives are taking home millions while ordinary workers face yet another year of pay squeezes. And they demanded that firms be forced to appoint a frontline worker to executive pay committees. Yeah, good luck with that. I mean, that would require a Labour government, and the current Labour leader seems determined to prevent that happening. Unless I'm mistaken, in which case you must correct me. FTSE 100 chief executives were paid £2.7 million on average in 2020, the latest full-year figures available, which works out at 86 times the 31 grand average salary for full-time UK workers. And that 31,000 average salary is skews up, I believe, because some people earn a vast amount of money. I think it's the kind of average that flatters. I can't remember my statistics because it's just such a fascinating subject. Boring. It just fizzed my mind with excitement so much that I just couldn't pay attention because I was so excited about statistics. But there's three types of average. One is you add them all up and then divide by the number, and that would flatter that figure, or rather, it would make that figure seem larger than it actually is for most people. 31 grand. Because, for instance, I mean, it's the old thing. If people are if there's 30 people in a pub, and you figure out what their average salary is by doing that, you add up their salary and then divide it by 30, then it might be 30 grand. If Bill Gates walks into that pub, then their average salary would be £100 million, but it isn't. Not for most of them. So I seriously doubt that most people in this country are earning that or thereabouts. I think it's probably around about the 20. Anyway, that's the thing that they're using 86 times. In I think it's 1960 or 70 perhaps, the CEO earned about 40 times average salary of the people that work for their individual companies. Now it's something of the order of 200 or 300 times the average salary of the people that work for their companies. So, companies have made a lot of money, no doubt about that, but it's all gone one way. Francis O'Grady, the General Secretary of the TUC, said... He didn't. He said, the pandemic has shown us who keeps the country going during a crisis. There are millions of hard-working people in Britain, from carers to delivery drivers to shop floor staff, who give more than they get back. But greedy executives are taking home millions while ordinary workers face yet another year of pay squeezes. He says, as we emerge from the pandemic, we need to redesign the economy to make it fair, and that means big reforms to bring CEO pay back down to earth. That's just not going to happen. O'Grady says the company committees that set CEO pay must be required to include workforce representatives who can speak up for a fair balance of pay with ordinary workers. See, this is how they do it. They say, oh, well, I didn't set my own pay. We have a remuneration committee. And it'll be 6 blokes exactly like them who work for identical companies, and they'll all set a massive pay recommendation, because they then can say, well, that bloke over the road, he's earning £5 million a year, running a similar company to mine. And they'll skip the part where they are the actual person that recommended that he earned £5 million. So they're just, they're rubbing each other's backs.
Disgusting.
Awful. So Francis O'Grady, out of the TUC, said incentive schemes for company directors should be replaced by profit share schemes that include the whole workforce. Too much wealth is being hoarded at the top, all of which sounds suspiciously Scandinavian to me. Scandinavia, where the happy people live. Gary Smith, the General Secretary of the GMB Union, which represents 600,000 workers, said the figures showed that bosses were paid 173 times the amount collected by carers who risked their lives on the front line of the pandemic. Yeah, well, we said thank you.
Thank you.
What more do they want? Boris Johnson himself actually stood outside his free house and gave him a round of applause. The Unite Union's General Secretary, Sharon Graham, said, is it the nurse in an intensive care unit saving the lives of those struck by COVID, or an elite investment banker making millions who contributes most to society? Which of them stood up for us all during the pandemic? Yes, good point, Sharon. But as nurses don't donate millions of pounds to the Conservative Party, they get nothing. I mean, they had the chance and they didn't do it. They only have themselves to blame.
Correct.
0345 6060 973. And if you think that's bad, just wait. Prepare yourselves. Zora says the foot of your stairs phrase means a short walk to recover. Does it? Well, how do you know where you are in relation to the foot of your stairs? I mean, you might be on holiday in Spain. That's blooming miles away. And everyone is telling you that Francis O'Grady is a woman. Well, that's just offensive. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Does that really mean it means a short walk to recover? I'll go to the foot of our stairs. But suppose you live in a really big house. I mean, it could take you forever to get there. You need a skateboard. I bet Jacob Rees-Mogg has his nanny carry him. Everyone wants to go to the foot of one's stairs. Nanny! Oh, Nanny!
I don't know anything.
Well, are we having fun yet?
No.
0345 6060 973. It's look at the time. It's 10:30 on LBC. The news headlines with Zora Solomon.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet @LBC. Text 84850.
What number are you calling from?
0345 6060 973. Colin tweets, I'll go to the foot of our stairs is an old North England expression of surprise or amazement, meaning presumably that the short walk to the place mentioned would allow the speaker to recover equanimity. What, they've got a horse? Leatherhead, hello Tim.
Hi Nick. Equanimity, very good, like that one. Is it too late in the year to say Happy New Year to you?
Of course not. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Do you know, my grandma used to say that. Not Happy New Year, but I'll go to the foot of the stairs.
Oh, yeah.
And one other theory is if you Google it, one other theory is you go to the foot of your stairs and shout your amazement up the stairs to the people upstairs.
Ah.
But my grandma used to say it, and she lived in a bungalow. And
Right.
so we always thought that's why it was funny.
Yeah, your grandma must have been all hopped up on tea and crumpets. Out of her mind she was.
My grandma was, she used to have a glass of whiskey every day, every night before she went to bed.
Right.
And she lived to about 90-something, I'm not sure what.
Well, that really doesn't tell us much about anything at all.
Booze.
But I don't know. I prefer a glass of whiskey earlier on, so you can enjoy the effects rather than just slamming it down and then go straight to sleep.
Was that with your breakfast about 8:30?
Oh yeah, that's about right. Yeah, pour it on my cornflakes. It's the eye-opening start to the day. All right, thanks a lot, Tim. 0345 6060 973. Gary emails, it was reported that Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer tested positive for coronavirus for a second time on Wednesday, the 5th of January 2022. That's why he is not around, Nick! ! Says Gary, who seems very angry about it. He hasn't been around since he took over. Are you kidding? Can anybody remember a single solitary thing that man has actually said?
No.
I mean, in relation to leading the Labour Party, in relation to what might happen in this country if he took over. Anyone? Anyone at all? Hands up at the back there if anybody has any memories of a single syllable that he has said in relation to how this country might be run if he were our dear leader. I'll get into that in a minute. You want to talk any more about money?
No.
MPs are preparing themselves to suffer another huge pay rise for excellence in being themselves.
What?
Politicians are in line for a £2,212 hike on April the 1st. Top grade trolling there. April the 1st, eh? Who's the fool? It will take their salary to £84,000 a year. And that is a pile of money from which they will be able to pretend to care about their fellow citizens who are rummaging about in the bins behind Tesco's to see if they can find something to eat that's not kale. The female section of the Daily Mail reports that the Chancellor Rishi Sunak is currently wearing a chic grey marl cashmere hoodie teamed with a fitted handmade shirt and trendy dark denims. Isn't he an absolute dream? I'm sorry, that should read, Rishi Sunak is facing a furious backlash from Tory MPs over plans to hike taxes with backbench MPs, warning that the Tories will lose red wall voters if they ignore the cost of living tsunami. It's a tsunami. So, in other words, only now there's votes in it are they remotely interested in the plight of the poor, who they would ordinarily use as kindling to get the fire going in their studies. Smug wouldn't do that, of course. He'd get his footman to do it.
I don't know anything.
MPs currently paid £81,932. They usually receive a yearly pay rise linked to average public sector pay increases, which this year would result in a 2.7% increase. So that's not an average of the amount in pounds that they get, it's an average of the percentage, which of course favours those that earn a lot. Fun fact, average public sector pay is near enough a third of what MPs get. Most public sector employees are on less than $30,000 a year. So 2.7% on 30,000 is considerably less in pounds than 2.7% on 82 grand. Who are they kidding? Last year's pay rise was suspended due to the COVID pandemic, and the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, the expenses regulator, last night said that a decision on MPs' pay for 22 to 23 will be taken early this year. A Taxpayers Alliance representative said to The Sun, now is not the time for MPs to get a pay rise. Its chief executive, John O'Connell, said politicians' pay should be linked to the country's economic performance to show that we're all in it together. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I agree with the Taxpayers Alliance. It's a very strange world we're living in, eh? In the real world, UK household income was beginning to flatline before the pandemic. Actually, in real terms, it's been flatlining since about 1970. But let's just gloss over that. British families are going to face a year that could see them hit by tax rises, soaring inflation, high gas prices, that'll leave them hundreds of pounds out of pocket as soon as April, and then every month for the rest of our lives. Still, our betters are going to be all right. That's a comfort, isn't it?
No.
And fact fans, £84,000 a year they're going to pay themselves isn't even the half of it, because there's expenses too. Lots of them. Here's what your representative can and probably is claiming. You get a bit of a boost if you're in London. So I'll go with the London figures. Accommodation costs, they get £23,010 a year. Caring responsibility, another £5,435 a year. A London area living payment, £4,090 a year. Another London area living payment, £1,450 a year. Why they get two? Nobody knows. And then, here's the biggie. Staffing costs. £188,860 a year. What? 188 grand. Office costs, £28,800. Well, those staplers aren't cheap, are they? And then winding up costs when they either don't want to be or we don't want them to be an MP anymore. 57,150 quid. Plus pensions of 1/40th of their final salary for every year they've served. So you serve 40 years, you're on your full final salary forever. I mean, who gets something as generous as that anymore? Just them. And without pensions, that's a total of £251,635 a year in expenses, £250,000. On top of their £84,000 pay, making £335,635 a year, every year. And in the event, like I said, that we chuck them out or they don't want to slum it on £333,000 a year, they get an extra golden goodbye of £57,150 just to leave us alone.
Bye-bye.
You know, for the cab home. And if you think, well, they don't just get that money, they've got to pay their staff. Well, fun fact, they employ their own wives and husbands, sons and daughters, lovers and potential hot assistants they'd like to do later. This is a report in the Huffington Post from November last year. Nearly 90 MPs are still employing family members with your money. Guess which party is abusing that system the most? Go on. Guess, I double dare you. I'll put you out of your mystery. 63% of those MPs who employ relatives are from the Conservative Party. 63%. Followed by Labour on 26%. Isn't that totally surprising?
No.
Nearly 90 MPs use taxpayer-funded expenses to employ members of their own family, according to the most recent register. More than 1 in 8 employs a loved one, despite a ban on the practice coming into force for new hires in 2017. They're just following the rules, Bodge.
I followed the ministerial guidance at all times.
Analysis by HuffPost UK finds that husbands, wives, sisters, stepsons, stepdaughters, mothers and fathers are all on the public payroll. You're paying for them. 87 MPs have declared the employment of a relative in the latest Register of Members' Financial Interests. 1st of November last year. 63% of the MPs who employ relatives are from the Conservative Party. The jobs range from personal assistants to communications managers, all include, include full-time roles that can earn up to £50,000 a year. Keeping it in the family. The practice is banned for new hires but family members employed by an MP prior to the 2017 ban are allowed to continue in their roles. This is like the Met Police. You know, they don't investigate crimes that have happened in the past. A review by the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority at the time noted that the practice, quotes, can be perceived as providing personal gain to MPs and their families at taxpayer expense. Can be perceived? As in, we're in the wrong for misperceiving it? MPs argue, you'll love this. Okay, here's their excuse. Top excuse? It's helped them maintain a family unit alongside the hours and pressures of being a PM. I mean, that should be the slogan of the Conservative Party. It's not what it looks like. I mean, it's just amazing. The stuff that goes on, eh? What a way to run a country.
Dreadful.
0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbott, LBC.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Right, so what are we doing?
Given we are doing a radio show, but it does remind me that I do a podcast with Carol McGiffin. We've done 99 episodes.
What?
99. I cannot believe it. There's 99 hours of me and Carol going at it, so to speak. It's a podcast called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol, and the 99th episode is out on Monday. And I've just gone through it, 'cause I've got to edit it to take out the rude words.
Disgusting.
It's her fault, not mine. And it's a laugh. It's out on Monday. It's the podcast called What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol. Now, if you want us to solve your problem on our 100th episode, which will be out the following Monday, then simply send it to the following address: nickandcarol@global.com. nickandcarol@global.com, and prepare for a certain amount of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Ask for it by name on an internet near you. What's your problem with Nick and Carol? Or just do an internet search on my name, Nick Abbott Podcasts, and all three that I do will come up as though by magic. Let's have a call in Quaker's Yard, South Wales. Hello, Darren.
Good evening, Nick.
Darren.
It's a pleasure to speak to you.
And to you.
I think that kind of like you've kept everyone sanity over the last 2 years. I was just saying about the possibility of kind of like being chucked under one of Boris's buses.
Oh,
as someone who's kind of like
never actually seen one of those
independently,
buses that is pretending to
not being
fashion out
some
of wine
recipient
crates.
of kind of like one of those. What are they called now? You know, when you get money for not working. Someone kind of like in the Tory party, I think it's called, or the Labour Party. They don't work either, do they? They don't seem to work for anybody.
Okay, but what point are you making, though, Darren?
I was trying to make the point I was trying to make is that kind of like whether the laws are being broken, no one's brought to book unless they're poor people. Because like Mr. Cock, or what's his name, kind of like Cox, he can work and break the law.
Well, he didn't. He didn't.
Comings
break,
and goings.
He didn't break the law. That's the point. None of them have broken the law, which means that the law is an ass. They can all say that they followed the rules. Oh, no ministerial rules have been broken. And that's probably true. It just means that they've written the ministerial rules to allow them to do anything they bloomin' well want. And they say it over and over again. Oh, we've had a thorough investigation and no rules have been broken. Well, what are the rules? The rule is that they can do anything they like with impunity. Thanks, Darren, for whatever that was. Higgs tweets, leave the MPs alone. They're getting a huge pay rise, which is great because they're doing their best. And Boris is doing his best more than any of them. Is that right, Bodge? You're doing your best?
I can't comment on that.
God, can you imagine if this was actually him doing his best? We're all in great danger. Clapham. Hello, Jane.
Hello.
Jane.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, Jane.
Good evening. Nice to speak to you. Now, this is supposed to be their, well, I don't know, is it their first job or is it their second job, the MP? I'm not quite sure. I think it's their second jobs, actually.
Well, if they earn more from their other jobs, then then being an MP is their second job. It's their their part-time gig.
Yeah, this is a part-time little number for them. So but what I was going to say is, I know, including myself, numerous people that have tried on numerous occasions and have written to get a surgery appointment with their MP. I actually spoke to him and asked him for one, and he just said no. And most of the other people didn't get a response at all.
Right.
Having one person I know has written 8 times requesting one.
No, wait a minute, because I've never done that. I'm not remotely interested in talking to my MP. So how does it work?
Well, no, it was to help, you see. It was because of, well, that's what I thought they were there for. But anyway, so I rang when I found out about all these other people as well, because I thought he just didn't like me.
Right.
I rang the committee in the Standards Agency for MPs, saying, it's not very polite, is it, really, not to even respond?
No, dreadful.
And say no. And she said, actually, I couldn't believe it. I was so taken aback. She said, there are no rules, they have no obligations, and there are no rules whatsoever that state an MP has to see a constituent if they request.
Right. I'll sum that up for you in a shorter sentence. Don't question us, peasant.
Exactly. And also that they have no obligation whatsoever, even if they do see you, to help you,
right,
or do anything for you. So what is actually their job?
I think their full-time job is to make sure that they have at least one full-time job to go to, either during or certainly after they cease to be an MP.
Yes, exactly. And this is just a little bit of pocket money they're earning on the sort of their legally. What's it called when they're moonlighting?
Right. It's essentially they're picking up walking around money while making contacts. That appears to be the job.
For their work, their careers afterwards. So they get into this so they can. Leap up the ladder a couple of rungs. Up the greasy pole. Yeah, up the greasy pole.
Well,
up the greasy. But meanwhile, making absolutely sure they don't do anything to help any of their constituents.
No, well, why would they? I mean, it's not like they're your representative or anything.
No. Well, I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I just said, really?
Well,
that's what they were for.
Well, whatever your issue is, Jane, you have my full support, if not my actual help.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest. We appreciate your call. Your call is important to us. Please hold the line. You're in a queue. Thanks, Jane. Paul tweets, the only one to whom it was not a game... Oh, we're talking about PMQs. The only one to whom it was not a game was the one that we were told to, including by his own party, not vote for. Oh, a riddle. You're talking about Jezza. Uncle Jezza? Yeah, no, it wasn't a game to him. He was serious, wasn't he? Yeah, it was important to him. Now, I do like Angela Rayner, but that flirtatious thing that she did, it was like they were enjoying their company a little bit too much.
Disgusting.
I mean, please, get a room. On that subject, Kenny texts, enjoyed watching Angela Rayner giving Boris a grilling while outrageously flirting with him. Would have preferred to see the no-flirting grilling from Carrie later on. Yeah, I bet Carrie was watching that on the TV and then took a pair of scissors to all of his suits. Every woman that he's ever been out with has thought, he's not going to stray on my watch. Those days are over for him. How's that working out for you, ladies?
Oh, fabulous.
Cliff tweets, David Bowie would be 75 today. We can be heroes, says Cliff. Yeah, the heroes is in inverted commas. People usually forget that part. He's not actually talking about heroes. He's talking about heroes, in inverted commas. 75 today. What an amazing artist. I mean, really just incredible and extraordinary. There's been nobody like him before or since. And I mean, there's been people that have, great back catalogues as bands and individuals. But as an individual, really, I think Stevie Wonder is on his level, kind of, but not really. But that's about it. Name me another person. Don't say Bob Dylan. Lennon and McCartney were two people, but they weren't really. They didn't have that sort of toe in the art world. Not toe. He was like up to his eyeballs in the art world. And crucially, he did at least one of his top. Okay, this is just an opinion, but I reckon I'm right. One of his top 4 albums was the last album he made. I mean, look at the Rolling Stones. Is anybody remotely interested in anything they've recorded since, 1980?
No.
No. I mean, they aren't. They don't play any of that new stuff. It's all the old hits. There isn't anybody that sort of got better at the very end. Plus, best death ever. I mean, he curated his own death. Who does that? It was genius. Because from absolutely nothing, he'd released the Next Day album, which took everybody by surprise. Really clever. He released that single, the really slow one, where he was being all contemplative about his time in Berlin. Very, very slow. It sounded like a really old man. You remember that? And the first single came out, and everyone thought, wow, this is a really good single, but God, does he sound old. And then the album came out from that single, and it was all really hard rock, and it just sort of blew you back in your seat. And they went, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Big surprise. Not what the single would have led you to believe was coming. And then there was a big, long period of silence. And then the word came out that he's got this new album out. You heard the album and you thought, this is incredible. And then he released those 2 pictures of him literally laughing in death's face in that Tom Brown suit in front of that corrugated shop front, that sort of in what looked like an alley in New York. And it looked like it wasn't a staged laugh. It looked like he was really laughing, which must be quite hard. And then the videos came out of him with the coins on his eyes. And then he died, like the next day. It was just, his death was an art piece. Nobody else is ever going to come anywhere near that. Plus, there's all the back catalogue.
Rock and roll!
Unmatched. So, yeah, happy birthday, David Bowie. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nica@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Hello, boys.
You've got a good, your mind is a little bit, three-dimensional.
No, I do not know what you mean. Hippie. Mike texts, I've watched the first half of the James Bond. It's a bit bamboozling so far. Second half tomorrow, perhaps. I wouldn't bother. There you are. I've saved you 3 hours. Dale texts, it's a pied wagtail, mate. Yeah, we've been through all that. I've tried to identify this bird that I saw with precious little success. And people have said that before. And it looks a bit, it's a little looky-likey. But it was lost. I mean, what was it doing in the middle of a shopping centre? Bizarre. And then the other time I saw it was outside a garage. Wasn't any green for a considerable distance. Stupid bird. Josh says, did that fella say that the bird was a little skint? I know the feeling. Right. Forest Hill. Hello, Jamie.
Hi, Nick. I think your show's fantastic. I was just calling
as
to
in
say...
science fiction?
No, really, really enjoy it with my wife every Friday and Saturday
You
night.
enjoy it with your wife every Friday and Saturday night?
Disgusting.
We don't wish to know that.
Listening to your show.
Thanks.
Just when you were saying about the politicians, I was looking up Lord Dobbs today, and he was, on his Wikipedia page, it says he claims 28 or 29,000 a year, and he classes it as being paid because lords aren't paid. And
yeah, they are.
I just think it's too much responsibility for the MPs and for the lords to be getting all this sort of inferred money rather than an actual wage that is specific and stipulated.
Yes.
And I think that's the vagueness that is really dangerous for us.
I think
and
that we should do them a
democracy
favour and take their money away from them so they don't have to worry about it anymore.
I think it is about that. I think it's about limiting it in some way so as they know what they have to live on and what the public are willing to pay them, so as we can just sort of draw a line underneath it, rather than also the £300 a day plus expenses and plus different things, and that we just actually have a little bit more specificity in what is appropriate and what is accordant to their skills and ability.
And of course, it's over and above that is the indefinable value of being a lord or a member of parliament, which you can monetise. And if frankly, if you can't double your salary within about a month of arriving there, then you're not trying very hard.
I would have thought that's absolutely right. And also, I mean, it's also just the life that you must lead, which is very social and opens doors of restaurants and also various other parties and enjoyments and pleasures. And also, it is a privilege, and it is about what the qualities that those people bring to our society, and that's to be valued. But I think there's, we know the House of Lords is bloated far too much. 800 members, I think, that needs to come down to something like 350.
I'd say it needs to come down to 0, and then we start again and vote for the people that are running this country, rather than being run by unelected bureaucrats, which is what I thought that Brexiters wanted to leave the European Union for.
But would that be a little bit too sharp too soon?
I don't care. Let's just do it.
But that's sort of like, is that not anarchy and revolution? Do we not want a gradual process where also we've got all these religious,
let me ask,
bishops?
Yeah, get them
bishops.
out. Get them out right now, straight away. I mean it.
But where are the imams? Where are the rabbis? Where are the Hindu leaders?
They shouldn't be in there either.
Of our society.
No, none of those people should be in there at all, unless we specifically vote them in.
But they have. There is an argument for moral guidance within our society.
Do me a favour. Are you joking? I'll assume you're joking, Jamie.
Well, I'm trying to give some sort of credence to their value.
You're being devil's advocate. I get it.
Well, I'm trying. Well, generous to the thought that actually there is a place for them.
Yeah, I've got a place for them.
The bishops
in prison.
Have been fantastic. I've only met one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good work there, Jamie. I think you're winding me up. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Caroline texts, I've been enjoying listening to your podcasts with Carol. I've listened to 3 and I can't wait to hear them all. Very entertaining, and you both have a brilliant sense of humour. Thanks, Caroline. That name of the podcast again is What's Your Problem with Nick and Carol. If you download Global Player, then it's on there. Have you seen Global Player? Oh, it's amazing. It's got all the radio stations that we do. There's Capital and Heart and X and Smooth and which are the other ones? LBC, yes, I know. What are the other ones? Gold, yes.
LBC News.
This is like the Generation Game. Yeah. Cuddly Toy, Steak Knives, yes.
Classic.
You got no idea what I'm talking about, have you?
No.
Generation Game.
No.
Brucey?
Forsyth.
That is the right answer.
Affirmative.
You get to take home a boat. But I live in a flat. They used to have a show that gave away a boat to people that live miles away from the sea. What are you going to do with that? Anyway, Sally says, "How's your tooth, Nick?" Oh, don't start, Sally. I've got to go again next week. Not that I'm complaining or anything.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
Sally says, I having a root canal tooth extracted next week. It appears to be playing havoc with your diction there, Sally, with your command of the English language. She says, like you, cost a huge amount, and now ripping it out of my mouth, lol, hopefully stop the pain. Yeah. It's very, very annoying. I mean, can you think of anything else that you'd pay? I've spent £1,500 on keeping this tooth in my head.
What?
Yeah. Because I know that if I'd gone to the NHS, they'd have said, oh, we'll just take it out. That's what they did with the back tooth on the other side. They said, we're not even going to think about it, we're going to take it out, and that's that. That's your choice. You can either suffer in pain for the rest of your life, or we're going to rip it out of your head. And I knew that that's what they'd do if I went to the other side. And so after 11 years of safe in their hands, you're forced to go private. This is their little scheme, I'm certain of it. And so I paid one grand for the root canal, and no wait, it was like another 500 for. It was 1 grand. Oh no, it's a cap. So you get a root canal, that's £1,000, and then a cap is another 500, or the other way around. It don't make no never mind. It's £1,500. Just keep this tooth in my head, and it's never been right. If I poke it with my tongue like that, or poke it with my tongue like that, then it feels sore, and so I've got to go and see him again. And I know he's going to say, "Oh, we'll just take it out then." And so I paid £1,500 to get what I would have got for free on the NHS. But you know me, I never complain. Can you think of anything else that you'd pay that much money for and not get what you wanted or what was advertised, and you just shrug your shoulders and go, "Oh well, never mind"? I mean, you'd want your money back, wouldn't you? If you bought a car for £1,500 and it didn't work, you'd want your money back, and the law would be on your side. But what can you do with a dentist? I mean, he'll just say, "Oh well, it's it's nothing to do with me. I did everything right. Prove that I didn't." Plus, you don't want to pick a fight with somebody who's going to come and attack you with a drill. Private healthcare is an absolute racket in this country. It is. We've got the worst of both worlds in this country. I firmly believe that. The only worst place for health on earth, probably, the more stupid system is America, where if you're rich, you're fine. If you're not, you're screwed. But in the rest of Europe, I mean, they've got a much more sensible system than we have. And the evidence of that is that they have better results than we do. I mean, if you go to France or Germany or Spain or Italy and, everywhere else in Europe, I'm sure, they don't have this, you can't see a doctor, and we'll put you on a waiting list to see your GP, and you won't be able to see him or her, sexist, if you do get to the front of that list. And once you get to the front of that list, in about 3 or 4 weeks, then we'll put you on a list to get on a list to see a consultant. They haven't got any of that. I'm certain of it. They have a completely different system, which makes them happier. We should be more Scandinavian and less American. But unfortunately, the American system makes a few people a vast amount of money. So, certain people in government in this country have got pound signs in their eyes. And unfortunately, that's where we appear to be going. Sally says, oh no, I read that. Richard emails, your book of 2021 is listed on Amazon for £4.50, not £1.72. I just thought you should know, as you are the best, says Richard. No, you haven't been paying attention, Richard. The e-book, the hippie e-book for eco people is £1.72. If you want them to cut down a tree for your pleasure, then that's £4.50. £1.72 for the e-book. That's the smallest amount that they'll allow you. £4.50, because they've got to print the book, they've got to get the paper and get the ink and print the book and put it in an envelope and all of that lot, so it costs more. But if you just want to read it, £1.72. I recommend you get the £1.72 one to save the planet. Kathy texts, Nick, what about Ed Davy Balls, or is it Ed Balls Davy? What about him? What does that mean? You're talking in riddles, Kathy. What about him? Pauline says, if MPs get a pay rise when there's a cost of living hike, then you might be right. Parliament is a club for elites. Elites spelled E-L-E-E-T-S. Which is not how the elites would spell elite.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbot.
Now, wait a minute. I don't like that kind of talk. Now, just stop it. It upsets me.
Catherine says, I bought your book today, the paperback version. Mine also is coming tomorrow. Surely they wouldn't print them as they are ordered. How could they? I just ordered it today, and if it doesn't arrive, I'll go to the foot of the stairs, says Catherine. Well, the foot of the stairs is by the front door, which is where your letterbox is, so that just makes sense. That does seem a bit quick, doesn't it? Remarkable. But I'm absolutely certain they don't print like a great stack of them because they've got absolutely no idea if I'd sell any or not. So that's modern technology, that is. Marvellous. Should we talk about Keir Starmer?
No.
Sir Keir Starmer, and I do believe that the Sir part is a problem. But they do, people who get Sirs, they do insist on it, don't they? The one that really grates on me is Sir Elton John. I mean, like rockers in general, if they're going to accept it, and David Bowie didn't, by the way, if they're going to accept it, then they should drop the Sir part, because it just doesn't fit with the rock and roll image, you know? But he insists on it, or I assume that he does, because every time his name is mentioned on a poster or anything at all, it's Sir Elton John. Anyway, Sir Keir Starmer today issued a desperate plea to not today, this was this week, a couple of days ago. Issued a desperate plea to Red Wall voters who deserted Labour at the 2019 general election and urged them to give the party just one more chance. He didn't say just one more, he said another chance. Sir Keir said Labour had changed since its brutal defeat under the leadership of Jeremy Corbyn, and voters in crucial seats should take another look at the party. Oh, they've changed all right. They've become indistinguishable from the Conservative Party. Not the Conservative Party under the current administration. I mean, they appear to have gone full mafia.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's the wrong absolutely.
Absolutely.
There you are, mafia. I mean, the Conservative Party under the current administration, they seem to be indistinguishable from the Cosa Nostra. No, the Labour Party seemed to be indistinguishable from the Conservatives under a normal leader. Isn't that right, Bodge?
I followed the ministerial guidance at all times.
I mean, seriously, what is the difference between them? He had the chance to actually show some room between them and the Labour Party when Sadiq Khan announced an easing to the stupidly expensive and utterly hopeless war on drugs last week. And Keir Starmer practically read out a statement that could have been written for him by Priti Patel. I mean, it's no wonder that young people, by which I mean those under 50, don't bother voting. Labour and the Tories are practically indistinguishable to them. And the one thing that might get the young to sit up and take notice, instead of the usual we care about law and order and we care about the NHS, is doing something smart about the thing that they're more likely to take than the oldies who vote Conservative. And Sir Keir didn't even hesitate to throw that chance away. Old people vote Conservative. You aren't going to change that. Doesn't matter where they live or how well off they are. When people get past 50, they vote Tory. End of story. So for the Labour Party to get in next time, Starmer's going to have to get the young out to vote. He's going to have to present something dynamic and different. Well, we know he's not showing he's different. How is he on dynamism? The Labour leader used a major New Year speech in Birmingham to set out his vision for the UK as he vowed to make Brexit work. Oh, for crying out loud, you've got to be kidding me. And he insisted that he and his party are patriotic. Oh, Struth. He deployed the flags. He might as well have worn a blue rosette.
Oh, fabulous.
And he's now all about Brexit, despite the fact that the majority in the age group he's going to need are vehemently against Brexit. 73% of 18 to 24-year-olds voted to remain. 73. 62% of 25 to 34-year-olds voted to remain. And he's trying to get them on side by saying how great Brexit's going to be. How's Brexit going so far, by the way?
Brexit's going great.
He looked to take advantage of Boris Johnson's difficult last few months as he unveiled a new contract with the British people. He criticised the PM's handling of Brexit and said that he would ensure that the UK can profit from our strong global relationships. What does that mean? We have strong global relationships. We've got a strong relationship with our banks as individuals. I mean, that doesn't mean that they're going to do us any favours. Strong global relationships. No, we are in competition with every nation on earth. That's why countries group together to give themselves some leverage. Friends is one thing, but this is business. Strong global relationships. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. What's he talking about? He defended his credentials as a patriot. Oh, my God. I mean, at that point, I put my head in my hands. He said, I don't think you cease to be a patriot because you notice your country has flaws. Flaws? Traitor! Is he seriously trying to out-patriot his way into number 10? I mean, he probably told everybody how much pride he has in the Queen. In other news, he spoke of his pride in the Queen and described the UK as a remarkable nation which is a great place to be. No, not great. It's the best place. Show him how it's done, Gavin.
I just reckon we've got the very best people in this country. Much better than the French have, much better than the Belgians have, much better than the Americans have. That doesn't surprise me at all because we're a much better country than every single one of them.
Every single one of them. The Labour leader fired a broadside at Boris Johnson over the cost of living crisis as he claimed the government's incompetence is becoming plain. Becoming. I mean, how much longer does he think we'll need before we're sure? Becoming plain. Sir Keir started 2022 with his party ahead of the Tories in a series of recent opinion polls. That's right. After Johnson suffered a bruising December with 100 of his MPs rebelling over coronavirus restrictions, a row over Downing Street parties and the North Shropshire by-election loss. But it wasn't polls in favour of Starmer. They were in protest at Johnson. And if that's the strategy, to wait, not doing much, until the great Blondini finally does himself in, he's going to lose. Because a new poll by Redfield and Wilton Strategies, published just the other day, showed the Tories have rebounded and are now just 3 points behind Labour. And in a month, I bet they'll be back on top because, I don't know, Bodger's doing his best. Setting out his new contract with the British people. I mean, is it a I mean, really? Manifesto, in other words. First of all, does anybody read the manifestos?
No.
Has anybody, if they did, believe a word in them?
No.
He said, I want to start the new year by making a pledge of straight leadership. Today I want to introduce my contract with the British people. And the British people, as with one voice, said, oh, please.
Boring.
Yeah, we're all asleep already. He said, this will be a solemn agreement about what this country needs and how a good government should conduct itself. Okay, well, you lost us at solemn, as in grave, sedate, serious. You're up against Coco the Clown. You're going to have to do better than Scout's promise. Sir Keir said the first clause in his new contract with the nation is a binding commitment about decency and standards in public life. I mean, this is quite possibly the worst, most corrupt regime in the history of this country. And if there was an election tomorrow, they'd get another 5 years. Decency and standards in public life. No one cares. Pointing to the so-called Nolan principles of selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty and leadership, he said, my promise to you will always be to run a government that honours these principles. I have a very clear idea of what a Labour government would look like. Well, you know, that's nice because we don't, apart from some airy ideas about being nice. On the first issue of security, Sir Keir said Labour would deliver everyone the basic right to feel safe in their own community. What does that mean? He'll ensure the NHS is there for us when we need it, and if we work hard, we should also have a right to job security. On prosperity, he said that everyone should have the opportunity to thrive, to realise our ambitions, and to have the skills we need to prosper. And on the issue of respect, he said everyone has the right to live in places we care for, and to have our lives and ambitions taken seriously, to be valued for who we are and what we do. And on loveliness, he said that everyone has a right to lovely things, and a right to feel cosy and cuddly, and should be able to access hugs and snuggles. It'll be dreamy. He said Britain's got a lot to be proud of, including Her Majesty the Queen and the rule of law, as well as universal public services. He said he wanted to use the address to celebrate the country we live in, as he joked that criticising and opposing the government can make us sound pretty miserable. Well, I don't know, maybe we should give it a go, see what happens. In a message directly to former Labour voters in the so-called Red Wall seats, which the party lost to the Tories in 2019, Sir Keir said, "Take another look at Labour, we've changed." Yeah, you've changed from a party that actually connected with the young and is now flailing around helplessly because its core voters turned 60 and wouldn't vote Labour if you gave them free slippers. Sir Keir's speech comes as a new poll suggests that Johnson's decision not to hammer England with fresh COVID curbs over Christmas has paid off with voters, as Labour's poll lead was cut by 5 points, from 8 to 3. And Johnson is now seen, yet again, as a better candidate to be Prime Minister than Sir Keir. 37% to 35%, having fallen behind in December. You're going to lose again, just saying. 0345 6060 973. I mean, how long do they have to wait before they make a decision about whether he's got it or not? I think the jury's in. Guilty. Guilty for a lack of itness. Sam texts, the only thing I know about the foot of the stairs is my mum standing at the bottom warning that she's about to come up if I don't do as I'm told. Yeah, clean your room and your dinner's on the table. Getting cold. Kay emails, what we really need is a land value tax and a carbon tax, then turn the tax-free allowance into a universal basic income while clawing back from the people with the broadest shoulders. Keir Starmer on the phone, he's going to have to rewrite that speech. 0345 6060 973, text 84850, email nick@lbc.co.uk, and if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10, Nick Abbot, LBC. It's 11:30, the news headlines with Zora Suleiman.
Leading Britain's conversation, LBC, with Nick Abbott.
You're joking.
0345 6060 973. Hampton. Hello, Matthew.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Nick.
Happy New Year to you.
And also the production team and Zora. I've had the brilliant day that I expected today. Chelsea won 5-1.
Well, don't tell us.
Go on.
Now I don't have to watch Match of the Day.
Well, no, I've just watched it again. But, it's been a great day. And just loving the show. Second to Steve Allen, in my opinion. But no, I love all the sound effects and stuff. And, just ringing to sort of say hello and wish you a Happy New Year.
Okay, well, that's great. Hello.
Bye-bye.
0345 6060 973. He was just checking in. Regent's Park. Hello, Vance.
Hi, Nick. Thank you very much for saving my sanity as usual.
Vance.
Nick, I've just been looking at the exchanges between Johnson and Brownlow. You know, they were revealed this week about refurbishing the flat.
Yeah.
Do you know exactly why Johnson was getting such a good deal out of Brownlow? You know, he was begging him for money. the reason is that Brownlow, who is a trustee of the Royal Albert Hall, was trying to flog an idea to recreate the Great Exhibition of 1851 in Hyde Park.
Yeah, but
a new Crystal Palace.
But
okay.
But there's no indication or suggestion that that was going to be a money-making scheme. It was an idea that Boris Johnson said that he would discuss, and nothing came of it, apparently.
That's right. But Brownlow sent him an app on the very day that that exchange started, saying,
a message,
thanks for thinking about GE2.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have said, as the trust isn't set up yet, will be in January, approval, that's for the flat refurbishment, is a doddle, as it's only me, and I know where the pounds will come from.
Right, it was him, yeah.
I mean, they scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. It's disgusting, isn't it,
Does
Nick?
Boris Johnson ever pay for anything? It's incredible. I mean, he earns something like 150 grand a year, plus a free house, plus a free flat,
plus his royalties from his books.
Well, yeah, all the private stuff and the speeches and the expenses. It must add up to the best part of £500,000 because he gets free car, free chauffeur, free this, free that. Everywhere he goes is free. And on top of that, he never seems to pay for anything.
Yeah, exactly. Except for the various kids that he's had. I mean, he's got to pay maintenance for those, and we don't know how many of those are.
Only the ones that he can remember. Yeah,
that's right. Anyway, thanks, Nick.
All right, cheers, Vance. 0345 6060 973. So on that, I mean, that never-ending story, Bodger is facing the threat of another sleaze probe after it emerged that he agreed to help advance a pet project of a Tory donor who paid for the Downing Street flat revamp. Isn't that incredibly shocking?
No.
Labour has accused the PM of corruption after bombshell WhatsApps were released, messages on WhatsApp, showing that he told Lord Brownlow that he was looking into his idea for a new great exhibition at the same time as he asked the peer to sign off for more lavish refurbishment works. Get me a dictionary because I need to look up the word lavish. See, I thought it meant expensive, but apparently it means hideous. As in, he asked the peer to sign off more hideous refurbishment works. Seriously, what is it with the rich? I mean, they want to be surrounded by expensive things and wear expensive things, but they also want them to look cheap and old and nasty. I mean, that stuff that Bodge and Her Majesty Carrie ordered for our flat look like the worst things that anyone's ever put in a home. I mean, it looks like a 16th century Turkish knocking shop.
Disgusting.
But it's all stupendously expensive. That appears to be what the upper class like the best. I mean, if you've got to buy your own furniture, which is terribly non-you, of course, then it absolutely must not look like anything else anyone would dream of having, and it must look like it's already 100 years old, and it must be eyeball-punishingly busy and loud. Like Bodger's suits. They look like he got them in Primark. But I bet he got them on Savile Row, cost about £5 each, and he just treats them like dirt. That's what differentiates them from us. I mean, a middle-class person would buy a nice suit and they'd hang it up as soon as they take it off and they'd steam out the creases and they'd put it in a moth-proof bag. But the upper classes, they buy the best old-fashioned stuff they can find at the most expensive price point and then treat it abysmally, thereby showing everyone that they're so rich that they just don't care. And if they make a mess, there's always somebody on hand to clear it up for them. Ain't that right, Bodge?
I followed the ministerial guidance at all times.
Relax, you're not on trial. Oh, that's right, you actually are. Labour's accused the PM of corruption after these bombshell WhatsApp messages were released showing that he told Lord Brownlow that he was looking into his idea for a new great exhibition, at the same time as he asked the peer to sign off more lavish refurbishment works. Soon after the exchange, we're told, in which Bodge described his Grace and Favour residence as a bit of a tip, the businessman had a meeting with the Culture Secretary to discuss the plan. All just a happy coincidence. And as for if this flat's a bit of a tip comment, well, of course it was a tip. It's because Boris Johnson had been living in it for a full 5 days.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Ministers insisted that there was nothing untoward in the discussion, pointing out that the project was not eventually taken forward And the Premier gets proposals all the time. I bet he does. I bet he does. The Premier also gets stuff paid for him all the time. He got a holiday that was paid for by someone else, and then he got another holiday that was paid for by someone else, and he got a year's worth of organic high-end food paid for by someone else, and he got his curtains and wallpaper and sofas and chairs paid for by someone else, and then had the nerve to say that the poor should get by without asking for handouts. I've got that right, ain't I, Bodge? Yes. He was also, yet again, cleared of breaking the ministerial code over Wallpapergate by his standards advisor, Lord Geit. Puh! Although the peer said that he'd been kept in the dark about the existence of the messages during the initial probe last year. And Bodger offered a humble and sincere apology for not telling him about the WhatsApp messages, blaming the fact that he'd switched phones and forgotten about them. Right, because that's believable. The newly unearthed messages mark another twist in the saga first exposed by the Daily Mail almost a year ago. Oh my God, has it been a year? Struth. Johnson and his present wife, Carrie, had hired top interior designer Lulu Little to transform the John Lewis, this is in quotes, this is what Bodger described it as, the John Lewis furniture nightmare left by Theresa May, and transform it, they intended to do, using gold wallpaper costing £840 a roll. The final bill came to £140,000 to tart up a building that already exists. Not build it from scratch. 140 grand just for the inside of it. And that should tell you all you need to know about his imperial bodgeness. John Lewis Furniture Department is what half the country could only dream of being able to shop in. But it was described as a nightmare by the nightmare that is currently the head of this catastrophic clown show that we've got running the place. I mean, tell me if I'm being unkind, but it speaks of being a spoiled, entitled brat who's never had to put his hand in his pocket for anything, and for whom cash has always come easily because of his connections and his ability to just smarm his way out of everything. And it also speaks volumes about him expecting that others will clean up after him because they already have. I mean, it's also desperate and grubby. That man has in 2 short years turned this country into a sort of toe-curlingly embarrassing banana republic state out of a Bolting Brothers comedy. I mean, you expect Terry Thomas to show up at any time.
You're better informed than I am. I don't know anything.
Well, maybe he has. It's like we've crossed Carlton Brown of the FO with St Trinians. I mean, if we go on like this anymore, he'll have strip-mined the nation for assets, trousered the lot and gone off to do the same to some other hapless country while telling us that he'll never leave us. See any of his past wives and girlfriends for full details. How was being with him working out for you, ladies?
Oh, fabulous.
0345 6060 973. You can text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. By the way, this show gets stuck up the internet as a podcast. Almost as soon as it's over, you can find it on the internet in the podcast section, particularly of the Global Player. It'll be on there. But anywhere where you get podcasts as well, ask for it by name on an internet near you. Nick Abbot, the whole show. The idea is that we take the ads and the news out, which means it takes less time to listen to, so you'll use less electricity and won't have to sell one of your kidneys to pay your fuel bill. You're welcome.
Thank you. Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbott.
How may I help you?
How may I help you? 0345 6060 973. I don't know if everybody's just like passed out. I think we've got post-Christmas exhaustion. But I couldn't get through the calls fast enough during Christmas and New Year. And last night and tonight, it's like, look at that. Nothing. Nobody interested in anything I'm talking about, like at all. This is not the Steve Allen show. You can actually call, Struth. Talk about carrying it single-handed. 0345 6060 973. David tweets, greetings from my toasty bed just north of Tokyo. I'll go to the foot of our stairs is just an exclamation, rather like stone the crows. Yeah, I know that. I know it's an exclamation, but it must come from something. It must mean something. It's not just a random collection of words. And where did stone the crows come from, by the way? Darren texts, at least Keir Starmer has got great hair, unlike the current leader.
You don't need to put all of that product in your hair. You just don't.
You just don't. How much product must that man wear in his hair? I mean, he must just squirt gallons of the stuff in there. It must be dripping off on his suit. Still, does have great hair, no doubt about that. Paul, I bet he could. He's got so much of it, you could use it as a crash helmet. Paul texts, I also used to live in a bungalow. I used to bang my head on the floor every time I ran downstairs to answer the phone. Oh, my God. Listener with material.
Oh, no.
That bloke just fell out of a Christmas cracker. Mary says, I was told by my dad that I'll go to the foot of our stairs meant, well, that's enough. I'm going to trundle off to bed. Well, yeah, but that doesn't make any sense. I mean, assuming it wasn't one of those upside-down houses, the bedroom would be upstairs, so he wouldn't go to the foot of the stairs, he'd go to the top of the stairs. Mary. I'm just saying. Sue says, I'm sure I saw Sir Keir and his wife in the wallpaper department at John Lewis today. So much for isolation. He's got to drop the Sir part. Of course, right-wing papers won't allow him to do that. They'll keep, because we do have an obsession with titles in this country. It's just curls my toes, but we do. I think it's just utterly preposterous, because nobody calls me Mr. Nick. Why do they call him Sir Keir? Crying out loud. And why is he a Sir? Just for doing his job. But it does rub off on, it does rub people up the wrong way, particularly those who might be considering voting for the Labour Party. There was this poll a little while ago that said, who do you think's posher, Boris Johnson or Sir Keir Starmer? And people said Keir Starmer. What? Posher than Boris de Pfeffel Johnson, who's a descendant of two royal families. It's the Sir part what's holding you back. That and everything else. Gaz tweets, it's a strange world we live in, Nick, when you agree with the Taxpayers Alliance. Did you know that dog food has gone up 39p? 39p! Imagine the outcry if that was on petrol. Dog food has gone up 39p. What, per tin, you mean? It can't have done. What's in dog food? Don't tell me. There you are, you see. All you've got to do is shout at them and you get a full board. Easy. Bunty emails, foot of my stairs is an ironical expression, usually of mock surprise rather than genuine surprise. It's the kind of thing you say when somebody tells you something that you suspected or knew already, so you don't have to absent yourself for long to recover yourself. I was married to a Lancashire lad and lived in Oldham, so was used to hearing this. I know how you use it, I'm just wondering what is its derivation? Where did it come from? I'll go to the foot of our stairs. Who said that first and why? How was the phrase coined? I know what it means. Let's have Doncaster. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Sir Nick.
Tony.
Can I express a controversial view on this Bristol affair to you?
Uh-oh. Go on.
May I? Is that okay?
Well, everything that anyone will say about the issue is going to be controversial to someone, but go ahead.
Okay. We expect to be able to go into a court and be presented with impartiality.
What do you mean?
The law is supposed to be impartial. The court is impartial.
Well, the judge is impartial. The jury is partial, depending on the evidence that they've heard.
No, just forget the jury for a minute.
Well, you can't.
No, I'll include them in a minute.
Righto.
What I'm saying is that the court, whether you are representing the state or whether you are representing yourself.
Yeah, whether you're a pauper or a billionaire, you are supposed to all be treated alike under the law. But everybody knows that's not true, but go on.
Well, I mean, we hold the law to be impartial.
Well, you might, I don't, but go on.
Okay. Now, the government are not happy with the verdict.
No, very upset.
Right. I think they've been their own undoing. I think their own incompetence has led to the verdict. Because if this had been a murder trial where, let's say, half a dozen people in Bristol had been murdered and a man was on trial for the murder, they wouldn't have allowed the trial to go ahead in Bristol. They'd have moved it somewhere else because
I'm not sure
population could not be relied upon to be impartial.
What? That's absolutely untrue. Completely, that's just nonsense. They wouldn't have allowed the jury to be made up of members of the alleged murderer's family, but to be in the same town, why not?
Well, it's common practice that trials of a sensitive nature are moved out of the vicinity of the crime. It's happened dozens of times.
Dozens?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not really setting a precedent.
Well, do you remember the Yorkshire Ripper?
Right, Tony, we're talking about a statue.
Yeah, I know what we're talking about, but the thing is the government have decided to blow it up to something bigger than a statue.
Yeah, well, it always was that, because the whole idea about all of that is culture wars. It's making their fans continually angry. It's the same trick that that tabloid newspapers use. Just put a splash on the front page, something that's going to really infuriate people, and by that method they'll sell more papers, and a political party will get more fans, or keep the fans that they've already got on board.
Well, the thing is, the verdict flies in the face of the government's intention to be populist.
I couldn't believe it when the result came in. I was very surprised.
It's their own fault, because if somebody had just sat and looked at that situation for 5 minutes, they'd have said, no, put them in the Old Bailey. Because if you took that trial to the Old Bailey tomorrow, you get a different verdict.
Well, you don't know that.
In probability, you would get a different verdict.
You don't know. I don't know it, and neither do you, Tony.
No, you do. You know that.
I most certainly do know nothing of the sort. You can say you do until you're blue in the face, but I don't. You say yes. I say no. I think that we should just agree to disagree, or we could agree to agree that I'm right and you're wrong. How does that sound? Thanks a lot, Tony. 0345 6060 973. Reigate. Hello, Alan.
Yeah, good evening, Nick. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Excellent. Isn't this weather amazing, what's been happening the last few months?
Amazing?
Oh, yeah, it's been so mild. It's not a winter. When have we had a winter?
Yeah, well, so far. But keep in mind that winter doesn't usually start until like around about now. I mean, February is usually the worst month, isn't it? So we might not have seen the beginning of it yet.
No, there's nothing happened in December that put anybody. I mean, everybody's wishing for a white Christmas. You could go out sunbathing, actually, couldn't you?
Yeah, but I can remember doing things in September in previous years, in December rather. Like, because the gardens that I go to have got winter, light displays. So I often go out in December, and it's I can't remember the last time that I attended one of those things when it was really, really cold. It's usually mild and pleasant in December.
Yeah, it certainly has been. Anyway, are you well? I love to hear you slanging off Mr. Johnson.
Well, I've gone out of my way to slag off Keir Starmer tonight, for balance.
You have indeed. Yeah, well, you've balanced it quite nicely, because he's not going to take Labour anywhere worthwhile.
I can't see it, really. I mean, if he was going to, it would have happened already.
Well, the minute he said that he was backing the fact that Mr. Blair had got the Queen to give him the highest honour in the land was astonishing. I can't believe it.
Talk about an open goal.
Yeah.
talk about a massive trap, and he just walked right into it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing some of the things that are going on, but in political terms, that one, I think, was a real bad one. Never mind all the corruption that's going on. Just doing that one thing was just ridiculous.
He should change the Labour Party motto to "I agree with Boris."
It's just funny. I was thinking that when Nick Clegg did that to Brown and Cameron, and they nearly fell over.
Yeah. What a way to run a country, eh?
Dreadful.
I know. Have you ever seen anything like it in your life? No, I would expect that the weather's going to get significantly worse before it gets significantly better, Alan. Don't worry about that.
I think you're right on that score.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's lovely to chat.
All right.
Happy New Year again.
And the same to
all
you.
The best.
Thanks a lot, Alan. 0345 6060 973. Just checking ahead for you while you wait. Well, I don't know. I mean, what do we expect at this time of year? It's like this coming week, it's going to be in the south. It's going to be 6 the high and 1 degree the low. That's about right, isn't it, for December? Except this January. Yeah, January. I mean, I did the big long weather forecast last night. I don't think there was, over the next month, they were predicting a great big snowstorm. They weren't expecting the big freeze, but there's plenty of time for that. Don't forget that it can be, winter in this country can be December. You usually get through December and it's not that bad. I mean, when was the last time it was a white Christmas, like really, really freezing cold? I mean, particularly in the south. I can't remember the last time. So you get through December and that's okay. And then halfway through January and it's still pretty all right. And then when February starts hoving into view, then you think, oh, right, here we go. February is usually the worst month. And then, after you get through February, then you've only got March, April, May and June before it gets nice again. There's something to look forward to. 0345 6060 973, Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10, Nick Abbot, LBC.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Are you trying to tell me that this is your act?
Yeah! Dude!
Oh, you should have seen the pictures from that Camel beauty pageant. They were fantastic. Very, very exciting. Some of them did use, illegal measures to beautify those camels. Botox and, I don't know, lipstick, eyeshadow, stuff like that. Thing is, they all still look like camels to me. Alison says they can claim, MPs I would imagine, they can claim for their travel and their housing costs, and some, in brackets. They have subsidised restaurants and bars and get God knows what else for free that the rest of us have to pay from our tiny salaries. Correctamundo, Alison. Andrew says, just wondering, what kind of annual salary do you think represents enough where career development should be discouraged in order to keep a lid on someone's wealth creation? Wow. Does that make sense? Shall I read it again?
No.
Just wondering, what kind of annual salary do you think represents enough where career development should be discouraged in order to keep a lid on someone's wealth creation? No, it doesn't make any sense. Shall I try and unpick it? I mean, I assume that you're making I'll just assume that the point that you're making is I hadn't suggested it on this show, but if we restrict the ability of the rich to reward themselves without limit, then it will be negative for us. It's too complicated. I don't know. You have to reword that, Andrew. It doesn't make any sense. Just tell us what your point is. Stop trying to dance around it. Glenn says, I just don't get it. Maybe he read that previous text. Me either, Glenn. What's he talking about? He says there's headlines tonight that the government is planning to start charging people for the lateral flow test kits, but they will happily take a pay rise. I'm in Scotland, where Nicola has said that they will continue to be free. But I'm sickened for the rest of you in England, says Glenn. Well, I'm not believing that, Glenn. Not believing that for a moment. Broadstairs. Hello, Phil.
Hello again. I was wondering, what is Sir Keir's function in life? It's been puzzling me, especially since you discussed him for quite a while. And I can only conclude it's about making the Labour Party safe for the Tories. And also that really the Labour Party is about, if it does get into power, keeping the shop, minding the shop till they get tossed out and the Tories come back. Because all we've had since, I started voting, I must say, Labour in 1974, so I've done a few elections, but it really seems to be, tweedledum, tweedledee, except that it's always tweedledum. And I don't quite see what he's trying to achieve here, except to make them so anodyne and bloodless that nobody in their right mind would probably wake up early enough to go to the polls.
Anodyne and bloodless, two excellent words of description there. Anemic you could put in there as well.
Well, I could put, yes, sorry, I slipped up with the A, yes, the assonance indeed. No, but it's interesting that he completely ties in with this whole thing of Blair and the honour. He ties in the House of Lords. He likes the whole Crown in Parliament. He's not interested in ditching the Union, so he won't get Scotland back. It's completely and utterly out of sync. And as you rightly say, the younger voters who he needs have buggered off. No, excuse my French. Have gone off to other parties or not going to vote at all. So all that number that came to Labour in 2017, which was the largest vote for Labour in many years, will not vote Labour again because they can't see the point. What is the point? Yeah,
or they just won't vote, which is the difficult
partly
part.
Because there's nothing to vote for, is there?
There's no one to invigorate them, to get out of their pits and take their eyes off their phones for 10 seconds to go out and vote. That's right.
Well, take a risk and say we're going to get rid of the House of Lords and make it elected. Take a risk and say we're going to review the honours system. The reason why all these things are going on in number 10 and nobody's being held accountable is because with the Crown in Parliament, it's all secret. It's been the same since 1688. I know you don't like history lessons, but it's true. It's more or less hasn't changed. We've had the odd Reform Act and things, but basically the same team are running the show. That's the way it is. And you can't get accountability out of that.
Completely correct in every respect. Yeah. All right. Good work. Thanks, Phil. 0345 6060 973. Speak to your core, the audience that you're going to need. I mean, forget the over 60s. They're going to vote Conservative. It doesn't matter what you say or do. They just will. You're going to have to get young people out to vote for you, Keir Starmer. Now, they don't appear to be enamoured of you or what your proposals are. I mean, I just read out his proposals and I can't remember them. On this show, I was reading them out. Everything that he just promised the British people, I can't remember a single one of them other than this vague notion of let's be nice. You can trust me. Well, we know about trusting politicians. How's that worked out for us?
Fabulous.
The drugs policy thing is a way to actually put clear water between him and the Conservative Party. And he just wouldn't do it. Keir Starmer clashed with his own bloomin' London mayor, Sadiq Khan. Now, Sadiq Khan is trying to do something other than this stupid war on drugs, which has not worked here or anywhere else it's ever been tried, ever. Now, the government's position is let's keep doing the same thing that hasn't worked over and over again because, that'll be effective. So the London Mayor Sadiq Khan's drug policy is something that Keir Starmer has distanced himself from. This is a scheme to effectively decriminalise cannabis use in parts of the capital. Not actually decriminalise it, but essentially, and kind of worryingly, giving the police the okay to decide who it is that they want to nick. Now, I'm not sure on recent evidence that we should actually be giving the Met Police that sort of authority. The Labour leader, Keir Starmer, insisted that he was against softening the law on drugs after it was revealed a proposed pilot programme would see young adults, caught with Class B drugs offered a speeding course-style class or counselling instead of arrest. Speeding. Could they perhaps have picked a better word?
Yes.
The trial, if approved by City Hall, would run in the boroughs of Lewisham, Greenwich and Bexley and apply to those aged 18 to 24.
What?
So, that's the most ageist thing I've ever heard. What happens if you're 25? Priti Patel gets sent round to give you a damn good thrashing. Thank you, sir. May I have another? A spokesman for the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, said similar schemes are already being used in other parts of the UK. Are they? Adding that it would, in his words, divert young people who are found with a small amount of cannabis away from the criminal justice system and instead provide help and support to cut reoffending. Help and support. What, to assist them going through the terrible burden of having a joint at the weekend?
Want to score some pot?
It's like saying, oh, well, anybody that has a pint after work needs help and support. Even this, whether he appears to be trying to do something different, trying to fashion a more positive approach. Even with this, they're still on that anybody that takes any drugs of any kind whatsoever is a helpless addict and needs help, needs to be assisted in some way. All Keir Starmer had to do to get the kids on side was to do what half the states in America have done, and Portugal, and Luxembourg, and Germany, and France, and Italy are all about to do this year. Don't screw it up, Sir Keir. Just say it's a very interesting idea, and the war on drugs is futile, and that you'll think carefully about it. And did he say that?
Negative.
No. He actually said that he was fully behind the war on drugs. At least he said, on the drugs legislation, I've said a number of times, and I will say again, I'm not in favour of us changing the law or decriminalisation. I'm very clear about that. I'm very clear that we're not in favour of changing the drugs laws, he said. And that sound you hear is of all those potential voters concluding that the Labour Party are indistinguishable from the Conservative Party and vowing never to vote for either of them. He's just not got it, has he? Mr. Khan, Sadiq Khan, the London Mayor's move comes less than a month after Bodger announced a major crackdown on recreational drug use. Of course he did. He's keeping his fans on side. He warned that middle-class users are not going to be able to continue because he will not sit idly by and let them fund crime. And he said they faced being stripped of their passports and driving licences under new curbs. Interesting, because those are curbs that don't apply to him or the rest of the Conservative grandees who were all competing with each other to tell us what they'd toked and popped and snorted when they were attempting to convince us that they were normal and could be trusted with the leadership of the party in the country. Falling over each other they were to confess that they'd been smoking this and taking that. Remember? So these rules don't apply to them, of course. But we know that. Sir Keir, who was the Director of Public Prosecutions before he entered Parliament, previously said he doesn't think decriminalisation should be pursued in England, thereby cutting him off from millions of voters who do. Millions of voters that other parties can't reach. The young. Khan's scheme based on research suggesting that police time would be better spent on serious and violent crime instead of punishing those caught with cannabis. But Khan's plans would clash with the Prime Minister's desire to get very tough on drug users, which has nothing to do with getting tough on drug users, because if that was the plan, he could start by testing every MP and their employees in the Palace of Westminster. No, the plan is to keep his fans on side. He's playing politics, and he wins. You lose, Keir Starmer. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. If you're on Twitter, it's @LBC. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10, Nick Abbott, LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbott.
Okie dokie.
Sue text, did you see the programme Anne? It was on 4 nights this week. It was about Hillsborough. Such a sad programme. How those people fought for justice. They never give up, they never gave up, says Sue. No, Sue, I did not. I do not wish to be depressed when I watch television. I want to be entertained. There's enough depression reading the news all blooming day long. No, I wish to be amused when I watch television. So I did not see that. Did anybody see that thing on the BBC on BBC One called The Tourist? Did that get any better? Because that first episode was terrible. I mean, I wanted to stop watching it after about 20 minutes, but I thought I'll just stick with it. You know, you never know, because they've been advertising the hell out of it. It must have some qualities, but I couldn't detect them. I haven't watched it for an hour. Painful. And that was their big start of the year offering. Well, I'm not completely satisfied. Because this time last year, they were showing, and I missed it first time around. I only just caught it at the end of last year. In fact, I was rushing through it because they were about to take it off catch-up. I think it's unavailable now. Their big show from this time last year was called The Serpent. Now, I was talking about that quite a lot over the Christmas and New Year shows because I was just wrapped with it. It was great. But The Tourist, well, of course, maybe it was just the mood I'm in. Every now and again, I will watch something and I'll think, God, that was absolutely abysmal. And then maybe a year or so later, I'll revisit it and think, oh, well, you know what? I was just in the wrong mood. Like Blade Runner 45 or whatever they call that remake or sequel. I saw it once and I got about halfway through and I thought, God, this is just absolutely terminal. And it came on the TV just the other day. I was like, well, I'll give it another go. And it was absolutely terminal. I was right first time. Always go with your gut. Milton Keynes. Hello, Mark.
Nick, hi man. Hi.
Mark.
I actually phoned up about the Caldon 4, but you've brought up so many subjects while I've been hanging on. I don't know where to start.
Well, have you seen that tourist thing?
No, not at all.
No.
I don't watch much telly anymore. Right. I'm 66.
66 years old.
Yeah, ding ding. And there's no way I'd vote Tory, and I voted to Remain. So, you know, let's get all this thing over with. People over 60 ain't going to do those things, because I did. Right.
Well, you're an anomaly, Mark. You don't mind if I say that, do you?
No, I've often thought that. The Caldon 4, I wanted to say well done to them. And when you go to court, you get to put out mitigating circumstances. That's one of your rights. You put out your mitigating circumstances. They did, and they got off with it. Fine. I'm up for that. Thank God for the young people. That's what I say.
I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it didn't seem that that's the way the world was going, did it? It seemed like the world was sort of closing in and darkening.
Reassuring is what I call it. Reassuring.
Yeah, maybe that's another anomaly.
And the camels.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah, they're trying to make their camels look like the Kardashians, aren't they? Botox, you know, things.
Well, if that was their intention, camels, I'm not sure. I think they need a bit more work.
Is what we're after.
Yeah.
Kardashian camels.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot, Mark. 0345 6060 973. If that was the plan, I think they need a little bit more work. Touch up here and there. Camel beauty contest. And they were using Botox to make their, presumably to make their, because Botox is to stop your face moving, isn't it? So that your wrinkles fall off. Why would they do that to a camel? I mean, I can understand why they would squirt filler in to make its lips bigger. Well, let me rejudge that. I can't understand why they would do that. But I've heard that that's what they do. Nothing about that entire scenario makes any sense to me. But, you know, what do I know about camels? 0345 6060 973. Oldham. Hello, Robert.
Good evening, Nick.
Robert.
Yeah. Whatever anybody thinks about Boris Johnson, he is still Prime Minister of this country. Mm-hmm. And so, around about the Glasgow summit in November last year, I wrote him a letter in the capacity of I wrote a letter to him in his capacity as Prime Minister of this country, after I heard a news report say that he'd said something about recycling, that recycling isn't enough alone, and we shouldn't be using non-recyclable products.
Right.
So I wrote and told him about widespread cardboard packaging that everybody will have seen that appears to be wrapped in this clear plastic film, and it can't be recycled. Excuse me. And if you incinerate it, it produces volumes of black smoke, which is undoubtedly toxic. And so I suggested that that's.
But what is it you're talking about?
Recycling.
What is it?
You can't burn it without specialist equipment, and that's defeating the object of the Glasgow Summit.
But what is it you're talking about, though?
I just wanted to bring up the point that Boris Johnson isn't just a figure of fun. He is actually Prime Minister of this country. You know,
I know that.
He is actually doing something. Whether it's the right thing or not will be told by history. But
no, I don't. I think history has been preempted. I think we can tell now.
Well, whatever. I just wanted to say that, and if he does the right thing.
But when you were going on about cardboard just then, what cardboard were you talking about?
Well, anything from electrical appliances to cat food, you will have found some of it. If you try to tear the cardboard, the plastic film comes away, so that's how you can tell it from non-plastic cardboard, which can be recycled, you see.
Yes.
And there's a lot of it about. It was just a few products. There is a lot of it about. So if he does the right thing about this, and he should do, then remember where you heard it first.
Well, he was probably right when he said that recycling is not the it of it. It's the not wrapping everything in 5 or 6 different types of packaging to begin with that's important. Don't rely on recycling. He's probably right about that, but that's probably not an original thought of his. He had probably Carrie told him to say that.
Well, he has advisors, doesn't he? Both of what to do, what to say, what to do.
Well, yeah, he's got advisors to tell him what to say, but then he doesn't say them. They give him rules and he doesn't follow them.
I followed the ministerial guidance at all times.
At all times. All right, thanks a lot, Robert. There's just way too much packaging on everything, and we should stop that. But they keep packaging things like that because they have focus groups, and they ask us what we want. And we tell them. And we tell them that we want apples on styrofoam trays, and we want them wrapped in cellophane with a paper label on the front. Now, all that gets chucked away at the same time, and you can't recycle that. Same with... I had... table mats delivered, very, very thin ones. Like there were 4 of them, and 4 table mats stacked on top of each other were less than the width of a pencil. And they delivered them without a word of a lie in a box that was about 2 foot wide by 2 foot by 1 foot. The contents were all packaging. It was all like scrunched up. Brown paper, like they were protecting a Fabergé egg. They were indestructible placemats made of nylon, and again 4 of them stacked on top of each other came to less than the width of a pencil, and yet it was in a box that was a foot deep. I couldn't believe it when this girl pulled it out the back, because I told her. She said, "Well, what's it look like?" And I said, "Well, it's going to be really, really flat." And, about a foot across. And she came back with this massive thing. I mean, you could have put a pair of ski boots in there. It was so huge. So that kind of thing. We want to stop that kind of thing, because that was ridiculous. But everywhere you look, there's stuff that's packaged like that. And you can't... and we think that we're being all eco, and, we congratulate ourselves for separating our plastics from our paper. But you know as well as I do that it all goes in a big hole in the ground, and they don't do anything with it. So don't rely on recycling. It's not wasting the stuff in the first place that's the important part. And there should be way more of those shops that you can take your container to and get it filled up with whatever product is you want, rather than just chucking away this plastic bottle into a mountain of plastic bottles. Many of which will have like a pump action thing on the top, which has got like a metal spring inside to make the thing go up and down, and so it's two different materials. You can't recycle that either, as far as I'm aware. So the problem is with us, the consumer. If we decided not to buy that stuff, they would stop making it. I've said this for years. If we took the apples out of a plastic bag, I mean, at the very least, fruit comes in a plastic bag, doesn't it? Plastic bag with a paper label on it. Even if it doesn't come in a styrofoam tray, they'll put it in a bag. Completely unnecessary. We used to buy apples loose. What's wrong with that? So if the consumer decided, and because we've got the internet, we could all make this decision, and it could go around, instead of a blooming puppy dog video, somebody could say, you know what, let's do that this week. Let's take the apples and the fruit. Bananas, they do it too. Why does a bunch of bananas need to be in a bag, for crying out loud? A bag to tell us how eco-friendly they are because they're organic. It's ridiculous. So if we just concentrated on one thing, let's make it easy for ourselves, and we took bananas out of the bag at the checkout and left the bag at the checkout, and everybody that bought a banana that day at that supermarket did the exact same thing, they'd stop putting them in bags in a week. And we would have won. It's our fault. Because they'll have the bananas in bags, but they'll also have the separate ones. And we don't go for the separate ones because, why? Somebody will have touched them. They're bananas. They come with their own packaging. Which, by the way, we open the wrong way. It's weird. Like monkeys, who are banana experts, they open bananas the opposite way that we do. Now, either they're idiots or we are. I think I've got a fair idea which is which. They know bananas. They certainly do. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nick@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on Twitter, it's at LBC. Look at the time. It's 12:30. The news headlines on LBC with Zora Solomon.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC with Nick Abbot.
0345 6060 973. Here is a call in Nottingham. Helen.
Good evening, Nip. I hope you're well.
Yes,
I
thanks.
just rang in on the back of listening to your thoughts and rhetoric around the legal response to Class B drugs.
My rant, I think, is the phrase you look for. Rant, yes.
No, I wasn't going to go that far. Your rhetoric around that. I actually wanted to unpick that a little bit.
Unpick it?
Unpick your thought process around that. So, don't get me wrong, we know Class B drugs are ultimately 90% cannabis related. We know what that does to somebody's physical and mental health.
What do you mean?
Well, it's damaging.
Well, only to the tiny number of people that it is damaging to.
Well, yes, in the same way as the tiny people who smoke cigarettes that it's damaging to, and the
alcohol.
Alcohol
living next to a main road, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But my feeling from your rhetoric was that you were not happy that it wasn't being taken more seriously.
How do you mean?
From a legal perspective.
More seriously? What do you mean by that?
Yeah, well, listening to what you were saying, I felt that you were wanting more from a police response, from a legal response.
What, you mean to clamp down on it?
Yes.
No, opposite.
Oh, really?
Is this thing on?
Okay.
Hello?
Interesting.
Which show are you listening to?
I did literally tune in as I came up.
Right.
If that is the case, Nick, then I agree, because, there are... and I've nursed people whose lives have been absolutely devastated and ruined by cannabis. So, not for a second am I standing here saying, you know, it's okay, it's fine. It's the same. I'm not going down those lines.
It's fine as much as alcohol is fine. Actually, more so.
Exactly. More people's lives are devastated with course through alcohol. Through smoking.
Or, like I said, living next to a main road. I mean, I can't remember the actual figures, but it's something like 40,000 people a year die from pollution in this country. Yeah, I was reading an article or in The Lancet, and I can't pretend to understand all their jargon because they just gave a blizzard of statistics. But one of them that jumped out at me was that the cannabis that's available on the streets of London, 94% of it, according to them, was this sort of super strength skunk stuff, which is...
Oh, it's not even cannabis. So I remember working on a unit a few years back where we got a
what do you
lot
mean?
in
What do you mean it's not cannabis? It is.
Oh, well, it's a synthetic base.
No. That's not what I'm talking about. That's something
nonsense.
else. That's something else entirely.
My concern is that people are purchasing what they believe to be cannabis as people know it, and then you've got people selling what we call the dodgy batch. And I've been in positions where I've nursed people where suddenly we've had an influx because they've all bought off the same supplier who's, you know...
Right, well, that's not what I'm talking about. I don't know what that is, but I'm talking about this report in The Lancet which said that 94% of the marijuana that's available on the streets of London, which is a much higher number than any of the other European cities that they looked at, is this super strength skunk stuff, which people do say is more likely to, you know, lead to psychosis in a tiny number of people that may be predisposed to it. The reason that it's 94% skunk is because it's illegal. Because if you're selling it, then you're going to go with the product that you make most money out of. Obviously. I mean, if in the prohibition era in America, if you went to Al Capone, he wasn't going to sell you a low-strength beer, was he? He's going to sell you whiskey. Because it's the easiest thing to make in quantity. It's the strongest stuff to sell. So you can store it and it takes up less per unit of alcohol. And it's the thing that you can make most profit on. So it's the reason that the problematic stuff is for sale almost exclusively is because it's illegal.
Absolutely. Do you know, if we could have a system where it was legalised and regulated. So, you know, in
like
this country,
in America.
if you know, this country, you know, if you go to your local Co-op or Marks and Spencer's or whatever, you have that bottle of wine, it is whatever. You have that packet of cigarettes, it is whatever. You put things on the street and you're going to get a different response.
Well, you don't know what you're taking until you've taken it. If you buy it in Tesco's, then it says on the label what it is. You know what it is before you buy it.
Exactly. If it could be put through a process, you've got two choices. You either legalise cannabis that goes through a process, or you ban the sale of cigarettes and alcohol.
Well, that's not the two choices. That's not the two choices. No one's ever going to ban the sale of cigarettes or alcohol. Well, maybe cigarettes. I think in New Zealand or Australia, they're doing that for young people, I think, or something like that. They're going some way to doing it. But you ain't never going to ban alcohol.
Booze.
Why would you want to do that? No, the two choices they have are either continuing to prosecute this totally loser idea of the war on drugs for totally political reasons to keep their fans on side. They know they're not going to win it because if they had a chance of doing that, they'd have had some success so far. But they haven't. Or they're just going to go the way of other countries. I mean, half of America has made a change, made a difference, and America is still there, as far as I'm aware. Colorado is still in existence. California is still there, as far as I've seen in the news. I don't think they've erupted into anarchy. Still there. The crime rate hasn't gone through the roof. Portugal, also still there. Holland, all of these places. It's not like no one on earth is trying this. It's not a revolutionary concept. It just seems so, I don't know, defeatist to just keep doing the same thing that doesn't work. Anyway, Helen, thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. And for Keir Starmer to have this yet another open goal and to sky the ball right over the crossbar. I mean, it's just. I think it's time, isn't it? If the Conservative Party had a leader like Keir Starmer, who had been in position for this amount of time, who had made this level of connection with the electorate, they'd have got rid of him already. They would. Because they don't. They are determined to cling on to power no matter what it takes. But the Labour Party, I don't know, they just seem to be not really that bothered. It's a purity contest with them. They'd much rather be considered on the right side rather than win. That's not going to get the job done. I'd say let Angela Rayner have a go. I mean, she's got some grit, and I believe that she would actually connect with younger people. In fact, I'm pretty sure that she already does. But Sir Keir, hampered by the Sir part, apart from before he even opens his mouth, it's not getting it done. It's not happening. Going to lose again. Tina tweets, NHS care should be reserved for those who have been vaccinated and have chosen to try to survive the pandemic. Well, that's an interesting way of looking at it. The unvaccinated are a drain on our care system and are preventing those who are vaccinated from receiving care for other things like cancer and surgeries. Well, that's an interesting road to go down, though, Tina. I mean, where do you stop? Maybe people who have got drunk and had an accident should not be treated on the NHS, or maybe people that eat too much crisps and cake, or people that didn't take enough care on the top of a ladder, or who injured themselves doing DIY. Very unadvisable. And I think that people are prevented from receiving care for things like cancer and surgeries. Probably the COVID pandemic does have its consequences in that regard, but it's probably also down to the fact that we have the fewest number of beds per head of population, the fewest number of nurses per head of population, the fewest number of doctors per head of population than any other equivalent country in Europe. So that may have something to do with it. Carnforth. Hey up, Annie.
Hey up, Nick. I agree with you totally about Angela Rayner. She would be a much better leader than Keir Starmer, but then there's plenty of other people in the Labour Party who would be too. I think he's just a puppet. He's just being controlled by Mandelson and Blair, and they're trying to turn the party back into New Labour Mark II, which they are in the process of doing. They've purged the left out of the party, and then loads of young people who voted, who joined the party and voted Labour because they like Jeremy Corbyn. They've just left in droves, including some of the older people who had been in the party in the past, like me and my partner, and then joined in 2015. We've not bothered again this year. And
it's going to be really hard to get them back too. They're going to have to present something new and arresting, and I think Angela Rayner might just be the very person.
I think she's great, but the problem is, I think Mandelson just wants to turn it back again and trying to sort of appeal to maybe sort of, I don't know, Daily Mail, Sun reading.
Forget it. Ain't going to happen.
No, it isn't going to happen, but I think this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the red wall seats back. Well, they're not going to get it back with somebody like Keir Starmer. For a start, none of those people who voted for Brexit like him because he was an arch Remainer. They've
got to realise that the game has changed. It's not the North versus the South anymore. It's the old versus the young.
Yeah.
And if they're going to get in, you're going to have to get the young excited enough to actually go and vote. That's the big problem that they've got. And the offering that they have at the moment isn't remotely close to doing that job.
No, he absolutely isn't. And I don't think he inspires anybody of any age, really. You know, I think the only reason why Labour's gone up in the polls at the moment is because the Tories are so unpopular.
It's a vote against Boris Johnson, not for Keir Starmer. Correct.
Yeah, definitely.
And
yeah.
that's also the reason why the polls have now closed again, is because it was an instinctual reaction to this Partygate thing, and he's just brushed that aside by saying,
I followed the ministerial guidance at all times.
And people say, oh, OK, well, we don't want to hear about that because that was last week's news and we're bored about listening to that now. Now we want something else. And then they'll just slide back into he's doing his best. Oh, look at him. He's so cute. Ugh,
yeah, he's funny, isn't he?
No.
They want to be entertained.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Oh, dear. I just despair.
I'm ready to go to the foot of my stairs, Annie. I don't know about you.
To be honest, I really don't know what to do. I just think, well, if the Labour Party doesn't... Well, I just don't think the Labour Party will pull itself together and because I don't think the people who are really in control of it at the moment, I don't think they care. I don't think Mandelson and all that lot care if they win the next election, so long as they've got the party back where they want it, and then they'll maybe work on getting rid of Keir Starmer, because obviously if he doesn't win, he'll go. They'll get somebody else in, I don't know, maybe Yvette Cooper or somebody that they really like and is on the right of the party, and then they'll say, well, it was worth it. I mean, they can afford to have another 5 years of Tory rule because they're all blooming millionaires. Well, Blair is.
I think Peter Mandelson's also probably done all right, but I'm not convinced that they are pulling the strings behind the scenes. But Keir Starmer seems to be in that mould of... I just think he's too nice for the job. I mean, give him something else. Make him... I don't know, head of punishment or something. I don't know. But
I don't think he is nice.
He's
Nick.
not
I really
suitable
don't think he
for
is.
the position.
I don't think he's nice at all. I think he's a hypocrite. He's a con man. I mean, the stuff that we had, when I was a member, during that election when we were voting for a new leader, it was, I'm a socialist and I'm this and that, and we had a big list of 20 promises, and they've just all gone out the window, and all those young people who voted for him were really conned, and now they've all just swanned off.
Yeah,
so
unsurprisingly, they won't come back. Not with him in charge. No chance. And that's probably why his speech was pointless. I mean, he's got this new contract with the British people. Who's believing that? We don't believe in politicians, but particularly politicians who talk, walk and squawk like politicians, which Angela Rayner doesn't. She's different. Like Boris Johnson's different, she cuts through. She comes through the TV at you. That's what you need. Here, Annie, I'm going to have to go because I'm past the break, but thanks for that. 0345 6060 973.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850.
Come on, we're running late.
0345 6060 973. Linda texts, may I draw your attention to a saying that I heard on the sitcom Open All Hours with Ronnie Barker and David Jason. The saying was, well, I'll go to the foot of my sock. Funny, yes?
No.
No, Linda. I guess you had to be there. Kate says, I had my booster today. My arm hurts. Oh.
Whinging and whining and moaning.
As I stood up to leave, the nurse decided that I should have a flu jab in the other arm. I mean, what kind of woman does that? I feel like I've been attacked with a javelin. Well, when I had the booster, they specifically said that not to have the flu jab at the same time. Not trying to freak you out, Kate, but that's what they said to me. Anthony texts, Elvis would have been 87 today. Uh-huh. Is that a fact? 87 today. I remember where I was when the news that Elvis had died came out. I was in Germany, watching German television in German. And all I could see was just a lot of people crying on television. And I wondered, why are they crying? But, of course, the German was coming out the set. I got no idea what they were on about. And that was, of course, before you could look it up. There was no internet then. So I was mystified for a little while there. Malvern, hello, Judy.
Hello, Hello, Nick. How are you?
Judy. Great, mate.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that I've bought your book, obviously.
Thanks.
And read it. Not all the A to Z yet, but
No.
you know how. And I'm not sure, but I think that I could possibly do really quite a good sale in selling Nick's quotes for 2022, because your quotes are actually brilliant. And I just want to say, last night you said, I think it may have gone over some people's heads, but when we were talking about the Colston statue, you said, never mind, your plinth will come, which I thought was utterly brilliant. Your plinth will come. I mean, it's fantastic.
You're going to sell it for £2,022, or are we talking about the year?
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously, I'm going to put it on a chip and sell it remotely.
On
but
a
yes,
chip, a non-fungible token. That sounds like a great idea.
You remembered it, yes.
£69 million.
I mean, it's a snip. And the government is not appealing. And you said they've got that right.
Yeah, they got that right.
Yeah, so, hats off to you. Well, I was going to talk, but it's too late now, because I think we're probably sick to death of well, not sick to death, but, Colston, etc.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Colston at one stage was actually used to do a sort of spin dryer or dish. Yeah, I'm sure it Colston spin dryer. But anyway, never mind.
He invented that, did he? I had no idea.
Possibly. It's so many things. So the war on drugs, I thought, well, that seems to be the thing. Oh, God. I mean, just say no.
Here we go again.
That worked. I mean, Nick, there's a world of difference, between decriminalising a drug and legalising it, which I'm sure you know.
Yeah. Get Peter Tosh on the phone. He'll explain it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to now because, but generally, if you take, let's say, the USA size, where they have decriminalised marijuana, they have state-run shops, retail outlets.
Yeah.
And they make an absolute bloody fortune out of it.
Well, they're funding schools and police and the fire service and, all of the money that used to just go to criminals and they buy Uzi machine guns with it is going to buy books for kids. Better.
Yes, that's exactly what they're going to do. I'm quite sure. So, there is one problem, and I read it in the paper again today. In fact, I actually have personal experience of it via my son, which is the concern, and I think you mentioned it, about the skunk, very high THC level weed that can be sold. And I mean, and that is a desperate concern. And there was an article today, and I can't remember if it was the Times or the Guardian. I read both because I like to try and stay balanced. Is the increase, which was something like 30%, 40, 50% increase in terms of young people suffering from schizophrenia, suffering from basically major mental health problems, which was highlighted because of damage to young people's brain, which is still growing. And I think I don't mean I want it to be, because I actually think the war on drugs is pointless, but I do recognise that if it was going to be sold officially from government outlets, which would mean anywhere else it would be illegal, then possibly it's the way forward, if only to get rid of the criminal aspect.
Well, also, they under a certain age, they wouldn't be able to buy it, just like alcohol. I mean, there are rules and regulations which make perfect sense. I mean, you don't want children taking drugs of any kind unless they're prescribed by a doctor.
No, but they still will. I mean, that's what young people do. They start when they're young, because unfortunately, actually, because you're young, things tend to start when you're young. Nobody's ever started taking anything. They only started smoking at the age of 40, did they?
Yeah, but I mean, you say that as though it's an inevitability. I didn't smoke marijuana when I was young, and I bet you didn't either. I mean, it was still available. I mean, it's been growing for centuries. It's been probably growing for millennia, millions of years, perhaps. It's a weed, for crying out loud.
You're
the
right,
law,
I didn't.
Yeah, and the law.
I did actually once. I once had the first time I had it. Actually, I fell asleep, and I thought, God, I'm sort of fairly sanguine enough already without having something to actually send me to sleep. I mean, it seems utterly pointless.
Yeah, you want a cup of tea, pep you up a bit. Cup of tea and a biscuit, Judy.
Yes, that's the one.
That article, that I sort of skimmed through that article as well, and the point that I came away from it thinking was that all may be true, and if so, it's terrible, but it's happening while it's illegal. So it's obviously not working, what they're doing now, and their intention is to keep doing the same thing, not because they think it will.
He who has the charisma of a roll-top desk, is doing himself absolutely no favours. I mean, Labour do this, but they're anti-everything. I mean, they're renowned, whether it's, putting alcohol prices 3 times up. And it's back to their Welsh heritage, I'm convinced.
I think that at the moment they seem to be anti-winning. And if that's the plan, then they're making a great success of not winning.
Well, they're winning. They're winning on not winning.
On not winning, yeah. All right, thanks, Judy. That's what I came away with. I mean, the news. Some of the newspapers printed this about the psychosis, and they thought, and their conclusion was that we must, revivify the war on drugs. But no, everything that they had just written about happened under the war on drugs. So it's obviously not working. So a sensible society would do something else. But unfortunately, we don't live in a sensible society. Isn't that right, Bodger?
I can't comment on that.
Exactly. Right, I'll be back tonight at, 10 o'clock. If you stick around, I believe that Ian Payne will be here at 4 o'clock to entertain and delight. But first, it's Clyde Ball.
Thank you very much, Nick. And coming up, a combination of huge price rises, tax hikes and rising inflation. 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 Hikes and rising